So we've done it, our first victory post-lockdown, 2-0 away against Southampton. Not really the most memorable of victories, but a victory it is nonetheless, and a much needed one following that dreadful defeat against Brighton, the humbling at Manchester City. And it's got us back on track, and I'm not quite sure on track for what, but it's good to get a win nonetheless. I mean, we've been craving football for so long, and these past couple of games have just been an absolute realisation of where Arsenal Football Club is at the minute. So to get a win, these have been few and far between, to be honest. So I'm soaking it up, and I'm really pleased that we've got the victory today. As I say, it's not a game that's going to go down in the history books. It was certainly not a memorable one by any means, but it's great that we've got two Hale End Academy graduates on the score sheet, and we've got a clean sheet. Rob Holding has performed impeccably today. Emi Martinez has come in, made some fantastic saves. That one against Shane Long was fantastic. That ball through to Aubameyang, showing that he's got more to his game than just a player that can command the box and be a good shot stopper. I'm really excited to see what he's going to be capable of for the 6 or 8 weeks that he's going to be in goal. Probably will play to the end of the season, so I think this is a great opportunity for Martinez, who, even though it feels like he's young, isn't the young goalkeeper that he was when we first signed him. I mean, when he was making those mistakes in that 7-5 victory over Reading all those years ago, he was such a different goalkeeper to the keeper he is now. And despite not having established himself in the Arsenal team, he's much improved. So excited about him coming into the side, and I thought he did his job really well today. And I'm excited to see that we're kind of establishing a bit more of a defensive understanding. We're starting to see Bellerin, Tierney, Holding and Mustafi becoming the 4 players at the back for us. But it wasn't really the story of how we lined up today, because we seem to play with 5 at the back at times, with Tierney filling in that left centre-back role. I don't think this is Tierney's long-term position. I think I've voiced that pretty well. I think he's a player that his future for us is at left-back, the way he bombs down the wing. We just get the best out of him that way, and playing in that left centre-back role really does limit how far forward he can go. But I thought today it made sense. I thought we needed that defensive stability, and I thought it allowed Saka to do his job really well. A lot of people were expecting it to be a 4-3-3 today, with Saka playing in midfield, and I think even in the game against Man City, when people were anticipating the same thing, it hasn't quite worked out that way. Saka's played more as a left wing back, which I think is probably where his long-term future is. To be honest, I'm not really sure I see him as a number 10 or a midfielder. I think his strengths really do come from playing on that left-hand side. His dribbling, his balls into the box, his crossing is fantastic. He's got all the attributes of a long-term winger. But I mean, he's 18, he can be a player that's moulded into many different positions, but I really would like to see him established long-term on that left-hand side. And I still think it's very frustrating that Aubameyang isn't playing through the middle. He must surely be frustrated by that. And I can't help but wonder if that's playing a part in the stalling of him signing a new contract. I think it's pretty much a given that he's probably going to leave the club. But I can't help but feel, from his point of view, for a player that scores so many goals, he must surely be a bit frustrated by the fact that he's playing out on that left-hand side. Saying that, I don't think he was playing as an out-and-out left winger today. I think it was more of, when we were in possession, we almost switched to a 4-2-4. I think on paper it probably looked more like a 4-4-2, but essentially it looked like Xhaka and Ceballos dominating the midfield when we had the ball, that is. And then Saka and Pepe on the right-hand side of Aubameyang and Nketiah. And that first goal by Nketiah, it's very Arsenal-like of McCarthy to give that goal away, but fair play to Nketiah, right place at the right time, chased every loose ball down today, showing why he gets a place in this Arsenal team ahead of someone like Lacazette. And it's crazy that since Eddie Nketiah scored that goal against Burnley, he's gone on loan and scored another away goal before Lacazette has scored a goal. It's mental. It's mental that Lacazette can't score away from home for a player that we paid something like 50 million quid for. You can see why Nketiah gets in the team ahead of him. He's just such a useful player to have in these games. But I still think Aubameyang is that player that I'd like to see down the middle. Personally, I would have played Aubameyang through the middle today, and maybe someone like Nelson on the wing, perhaps in place of Bukayo Saka, maybe, because we've got that game against Sheffield United at the weekend. I'd like to see us delve into the squad that bit more, and Nelson's certainly a player that I want to see a bit more of in the coming weeks. But it's good to have these options, especially on the wings. It's something that we've struggled with in recent years. It was interesting to see that with Granit Xhaka coming straight back into the team today, we just looked like a completely different side in the middle of the park, and that's with Dani Ceballos still having a relatively ambiguous game alongside him. I think there's still a lot to be desired from Dani Ceballos. I'm still not convinced by him at all, to be honest. I think he slows our play down at times. He divers on the ball an awful lot. He looks quick, but he actually plays quite slowly. He's not a player that I wouldn't be too upset if we didn't extend his contract or get him signed on a permanent deal. He's not a player that I think works particularly well in this system. I think we still need to find a better partner for someone like Granit Xhaka. Whether that's Lucas Torreira or whether that's a new addition that we get in the summer remains to be seen. But Xhaka, we're just such a better team with him in it, and that's crazy when you think of the situation that was going on between him, the club, the fans, the captaincy so many months ago. It's absolutely mental to think that we're so dependent upon him now, and he's such a useful player. He's a great player to have in midfield, to be honest with you. I think he works so well with Mikel Arteta in this Arsenal team. He's the player that makes Arsenal tick at the minute, and I'm just delighted that he's back in the team, and hopefully we can keep him fit for the remainder of the season. But finding another proper midfield partner for him for the next couple of years could be the difference between this club improving and declining. So I think Granit Xhaka does have a long-term future at Arsenal. I'm just very glad that it's worked out in the right way. That second half wasn't the best today, it's got to be said. It was really, really cagey at times. We didn't play particularly great football. We didn't kill the game off in the early stages, but thankfully Joe Willock got on the score sheet to make it 2-0. Again, McCarthy with a rather, I think it's hard to say, it's hard to blame him for this one, because obviously, fantastic effort from Lacazette after what was a dreadful free kick to parry it right back into McCarthy, and he's just handed it right to Joe Willock, who's finished it really tidily. But Joe Willock will be taking it all day long. His first goal in the Premier League, puts the game to bed, clean sheet away from home, and there's a lot of positives to take from today. As I say, I mean, it was not a glamorous performance. It's not an exciting performance. It's not going to get me off my seat too much, but I think I'm particularly encouraged by what I saw from Rob Holding. A lot of people are putting him down as one of the first players to sell this summer, but for me, he's 24 years old. It's not exactly old for a centre-half, and I think he's still got a lot to offer in this Arsenal team, having just come back from an ACL injury. If people are going to give Bellerin so much time, then I think they've got to give the same time to Rob Holding. He does seem to be ever so slowly coming back into a bit of form. I thought he was excellent today, as was Mustafi alongside him. I thought he was very good, and as I say, I'd like to keep those two in at centre-half for the remainder of the season. But lots of positives to take, but there's still a lot to improve. We've got to be realistic. If we'd have won that game against Brighton, and if we'd have, put in maybe a better performance against Man City, I still think that game was pretty much a write-off before it even began. But that Brighton one is the most frustrating one, because even if we'd have won that, even though we'd still be a way off the Champions League spots, we could still be marginally thinking about getting into a top 4 spot just about. But I'm still of the opinion that a season out of Europe wouldn't do this team any harm whatsoever. I know that for the financial benefit, getting into the top 7 is useful, but I mean, I'm not entirely convinced that the European football is what this club needs at the minute. We need a rebuild, we need a restructure, and I think one season away from Europe isn't going to do Arsenal Football Club too much harm in the long term. It would give us a good opportunity to rebuild, reassess, and hopefully come back stronger. But if we can get a couple more wins, then it does look like we will, hopefully. I'm saying hopefully. I mean, I don't even know where I stand anymore with Arsenal. We will probably qualify for the Europa League, but there's a lot of teams in and around us fighting for those positions. But we've got the FA Cup on the weekend. I think that's going to be a really exciting game against the out-of-form Sheffield United. We've just picked up a win. They're not in good form at all at the minute. And if we can win that, we're through to the semis of the FA Cup. And hopefully we can still pick up a trophy at the end of this season. Still going to be really hard to do that. But I am still putting a lot of faith in Mikel Arteta picking up the FA Cup. But it's a game I'm looking forward to. Obviously going to be really strange without any fans there. Obviously the FA Cup has such a unique atmosphere. But it is what it is. We've got to make the most of it. And hopefully we can go on to win the FA Cup. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Please do drop a like on this video if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And as always, I'll speak to you very, very soon. See you later, guys.